So I set up these standing orders for the gates. So what I've done with the security tent so far this week is I've put structures in place so that we all have our box of operations. If we work within that box of operations, we're successful. If we start doing our own thing outside of that box, we're gonna fall apart because we all think we're just doing whatever we want. So I set up these standing orders for the guys at the gates, and it goes like this. It says, "Hi-vis standing orders. Sign into your shift 5 minutes before starting at HQ. Stay at the post designated to you. You must stay alert, attentive, and on guard. De-escalate and diffuse all situations in a peaceful, timely manner. Must wear high-vis at all times, no exceptions. Perform debrief brief when you have seen, heard, dealt with on a shift persons of interest. Maintain radio discipline, e.g. use static call signs and lanyard number. Only use relevant details during transmissions. You must sign out your radio at the start of your shift and sign it back in at the end of your shift. No exceptions. Do not give your radio to anyone else. HQ will maintain communications with all posts. Make sure you respond in a concise, timely manner. No alcohol or drugs allowed on the premises. Either turn the owners away, or if within the walls, you may confiscate it. Unless police are forming en masse or participating in irregular movements, do not report." So a large part of what I was doing was to de-escalate alarmism, because a lot of people don't know what they're looking at when they see police moving around and they go, "Oh no, there's 4 cops on the corner." Self-care orders. Stay hydrated, take water to your post. Call in if you require a bathroom break. A stand-in will cover until you return, 10 minutes max. Maintain designated time on duty. Do not exceed your shift. Look after your feet. If you require first aid, call HQ to dispatch a medic. Now, a lot of people in the freedom movement might think that sounds draconian or too authoritarian, but the fact of the matter is that these systems were in place to keep you safe. If they weren't there, you would have been pushed out a lot sooner, and you probably would have had your fingers broken by a baton.
Well, with me being down there, just going there for the night or for the day trips, I mean, I was aware that people that were out of character looked like Antifa-looking people.
Yep.
So you had people from every walk of life that was there for their own agenda and reasons. So I could see why, security was paramount. I mean, if there was no security, would that have lasted more than 3 days?
Honestly, look, I don't want to inflate myself here, but as soon as I turned up with that beret, it was like everything changed, eh? It was like I threw a spanner in their works and they were like, "We just can't push them out straight away." It became more difficult, and I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's how it felt, eh? They knew I knew what I was up to. And even though they'll never give me credit, which I don't even require from them, I knew that I was doing a good job. Where was I? Where were we? So as things progressed, I realised that Parliament was going to play dirty tactics, so they turned on the sprinklers. And there was that big storm, which a lot of people will agree with me that was a HAARP-induced storm. So if you watch the weather pattern, it moved in an irregular fashion from the west side of Australia, and it went in like a zigzag way, and then it just approached Wellington. And it's not really how storms roll, really. It moved in a very irregular fashion. So that's an unconventional warfare tactic against your populace, against your citizens. So basically what happened at that time was, to my unfortunate ends, I met this guy called Brad Flutie. The guy's a grifter. He's one of those media clout guys, he just wants followers. He wants people to love him. Doesn't really know what he's talking about in a lot of ways. So I try setting up ways of mitigating this water, because it's becoming quite a problem. And I'm about 20 steps ahead of everything, and I know that if we start digging up the ground, it's going to make a mud pit, and we're all going to be walking around in mud, and that's going to look like a pigsty, literally, and then the media will run with it. And ironically, that's what they used. They said that we were like pigs in mud. And I knew that was going to come, and a lot of people didn't listen to me. So what I was trying to do in regards to the sprinklers was, there was a fella who was a very good guy. He came up to me, said, "I've got some guys, I've got hoses and hose clamps and they're gonna siphon that water down into the drains. I thought, great, that's excellent. That'll mitigate the majority of the water outside of the storm. So just as that's about to take place, people start digging up the ground because they seem to know what's best. So they start digging up this ground, and so now instead of having water in your tent, you're going to have water, mud, silt, all of that shit. So people start digging up the ground, and out of the corner of my eye I see these two guys. One of them has a "Don't Tread on Me" shirt, and he's got an e-tool, an entrenching tool. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then he has a couple mates with him, and they were also a bit weird. They got e-tools, military issued entrenching tools, and they're doing this thing that we did in the army called turfing, where basically you once you've squared off where you're going to have your sleeping pit and your gun pit, you basically turn the grass on itself so that when you leave you can put the grass back over and it conceals where you've been. So these guys start turfing, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I come up to everybody and I'm like, oh guys, you shouldn't be digging up the ground, it's just going to make a mess, it's going to make things worse, and we're going to look like shit. Well, one of these guys comes up to me and just calls me a pogue, which is in military slang is someone that is in the combat trade. I found that hilarious. So in my own opinion, I believe they were kind of sent in there to disrupt things and make a shit show for us. And at this point I realised, I'm not going to be able to sway everybody into not digging up the ground. So I went into the first aid tent to start sorting myself out. Keep myself dry, keep my feet dry. Feet are important. So I do that, and basically you all make a mess of the place, and then the next thing is, well, how do we clean up this mess? And I was really trying to avoid having this hay down there, but Flutie in his infinite wisdom goes, oh, I've got some hay coming and we're going to put it down. So this nitwit puts the hay down, place starts stinking. The media run the story that we're pigs in a sty and we've desecrated Parliament, which is basically just playing into their hands, so thank you for that, Flutie. Days go by, I'm fucking exhausted. 2 days awake, 2 nights awake, 4 hours, 5 hours sleep. A lot of very peculiar things take place. And then I start seeing all these different devices popping up on the buildings surrounding our perimeter. I start doing a bit of research and realise that those are they're not LRADs, but they're like an open air cooking system. So LRADs are directional beams of crowd dispersal, whereas these ones were more to do with it's like an open air microwave. So the short waves basically just permeate within an area. So I start seeing these different devices popping up. I remember it was a Wednesday morning when that big, it looked like a big gong on the top of Old Parliament there. Popped up. I remember going, oh, that wasn't there last night. So yeah, start seeing all these things popping up, and one thing I noticed was the irregular movements of people at night. So what this radiation does is if you sit in it long enough, the short waves will actually permeate your body. It's more or less like your cell phone, where the short waves, they'll pass through your body, but what happens is, because you're an organic being, they'll get stuck in your flesh and in your body. So it takes time for it to permeate out, and in that time it's heating you and cooking you basically as it permeates out. This is an unconventional warfare tactic on the civilian populace once again. So I see this, and at night time I notice people are doing some really weird shit. It makes you really think outside of yourself. It makes you think otherwise of things. And I remember walking around and my mind was wandering, and I was going, hey, that's not me. That's not right. My mind was just wandering at night, and I was just going, what's going on? And then I realized it was those short waves. And I just had to keep telling myself to stay on task, stay focused, stay on task and stay focused. And it was because of that I managed to get through it. That and the Lord's Prayer helped a lot. So I managed to get through that, but it was, so I got there on day 3, and on day 17 I had radiation poisoning. So that was terrible. So my hips are radiating. I felt like they were just going to split in two. I was throwing up this brownish black, and old Flutie comes into the truck where I was staying and goes, oh, I'll get you out of here. He comes in the morning, oh, I'll get you out of here, get you to somewhere safe so you can detoxify yourself. I spend all day in that truck, fucking sweating my ass off. Well, he leaves me to dry. He's got all his mates in bloody hotels, having a good old time, fucking sleeping in beds and shit. While I'm on the ground bloody busting my ass. And eventually comes in around 5 o'clock, and I got my my staff, and I use it to walk to his car, and fucking hips are just so sore. Got a headache out my fucking head. We get to this hotel room, he puts me on the fucking floor on a fucking on a swab, and I pass out. I'm out for 3 days, and I remember waking up on the second day and just feeling so drained and weak, and I just crawled out to the balcony, and I sit on the balcony. I passed out, and it was about that. It was on the third day that Flutie once again in his infinite wisdom decides to rack the cops up, so they all come down with shields. And then he was sitting there, and he ordered some food. We're sitting there, and he thinks he's so smart that he sent these chili pizzas to the cops, and he's, oh, I want to go get some footage. And I tell him, it's not a very smart idea. Well, he gets arrested, doesn't he? Whether that was set up or not, I don't know, but he gets arrested anyway. He doesn't. So I remember waking up that night about 1 o'clock, and he hasn't come back, and I go, oh yeah, he's done. He's been arrested. I wake up in the morning, and I better go find this useless cunt. So pack my bag together, and this old lady's bloody berating me, going, oh, you've lost your battle, buddy. Where is my son? Blah blah. I go, well, he's a big boy. He can fucking make his own decisions. I go out, try and find this prat. And they release him. Eventually, I don't see him again. I don't see him again. But they release him to his hotel room, and he rings me up in the middle of the night. Oh, Tango, come and help me. They're trying to take me away. I need your help. Please help me. Yeah, that was quite amusing. So I eventually get down there. There's about 15 cops outside his door, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to fucking approach you. So I just kind of stand at a distance, because there's nothing I can do about it. What does he expect me to do? You know? If he couldn't do it himself at the point, what the hell does he expect me to do? So I just kind of stand at a distance. I see them take him into this van, and I kind of turn away as the van passes. They don't recognise me or anything. And then I rang someone to sort him out to get a habeas corpus done.
What does that mean for us?
I can't exactly remember now. I haven't spent too much time back in it, but basically it's an exoneration of what you're doing.
Okay.
Blah blah. That's some law, blah blah. So that gets sorted out, and yeah. Okay, so I believe we were talking about when Flutie rang me up in a big dilemic panic. Yeah, so we did the habeas corpus thing. There was a lady that did that. Can't remember what her name was, but I wouldn't mention it anyway. So that was after I'd gotten off his floor. So we're on the 20th day now. So on the 20th day, by now, things had really started to change in regards to the demeanour of people. There wasn't the same kind of unconditional love and compassion as there was to begin with. The people were a lot more, how do I put it? More
hostile?
Aggressively assertive is what I was going to say, yeah. So hostile. They didn't come across as if they were there for the right reasons, and it was almost like a hijacking, almost. If they were genuine, then, oh, well, I apologise, but you need to, learn to be a bit more assertive in a less aggressive manner. So, it was about day 20. I just want to go back on a few days, because there's a few things, and I'll hop forward, not in necessarily chronological order. But I remember there was one point where a guy shot some fireworks at the cops while they were standing on the front line, at the front of the parliament there. That was unhelpful. I don't know what he was trying to achieve with that, other than get everyone's fingers broken with batons or anything. But there was another time where there was a guy that came in, and he had a pair of stockings over his head, and he had some kind of like trigger shirt on. It was like a "Don't Tread Me" shirt or something to that extent. And I remember he threw a petrol can at the cops, and it was empty. and it bounced off the flagpole. And I just remember he must have been a setup, because I remember how he was saying all of these things one after the other that were just what you'd expect far-right extremists to say. And now, keep in mind that left or right extremism isn't good. Any kind of extremism isn't good. It's an unbalancing, out of equilibrium kind of thing. So I remember that happened. I remember on about the fourth day, or third, fourth, fifth day, I remember finding like lengths of 4x2 scattered around the place. And when I say scattered, I mean well positioned in bushes. I found a golf club, and it was just things that were placed around there. Like there were several bits of 4x2, a couple of golf clubs, and I just remember thinking to myself, are they trying to like set this up to make it look like we're hostile, or are they going to have someone come in and use that, or are they going to trigger the populace within the wall to do something, and then, oh look, I found a 4x2, I'll use that. I don't know, but let's just say that I did find those things. And you know, to an extent, I did my darndest to work with the police, because after all, they are people too, and they're actually meant to be serving us, not the corporate government in an imperial guard fashion. So, yeah, I remember doing my best to work with the police, and we had a decent rapport. There was a chief that I was working with, and I assigned a guy to, you know, be the in-between for him, police liaison. And I remember it was about day 14, 15 that they just were unresponsive and didn't actually want to work with us. And I guess that's because they had orders come down to say, extract yourself from any kind of communications with anyone on the ground. I noticed that the rotational movements they had stopped, so they had like, I think it was between 4 and 7 cops would move from each corner of the perimeter of Parliament. So if you look at Parliament from the walls, it's pretty much a rectangle perimeter. The map here. It's pretty much a rectangle. Pretty much. Might even say it's a square. Doesn't really matter. The point is that it's an equal-sided perimeter, which makes things easy. So what they had was they had groups of 4 to 7 cops, 4 lots of them rotating from corners. So they'd do that every 10-15 minutes, where they'd do a rotate. And people were going, oh, there's cops on the street, oh no! And it was like, no, calm the farm, pay attention to what's going on. They're just assessing the situation, they're doing risk assessments, they're seeing as to where they could possibly probe the area in order to break our perimeter. Now, I want to talk about our perimeter for a minute, because it was shocking, and I did my absolute darndest to pull things in. So, our perimeter kind of looked like a Y with a half rectangle off it, and then a couple lines coming off it. It was shocking. You can't really keep that kind of perimeter. You need squares, circles, triangles. You need perimeters that you can actually man. And so that was a disaster. And I remember the police put forward this proposition of changing where we were parked. And on that map that you just saw, they had the red spots where we were, and then the blue spots where they would like us to move. And the red spots were all tight together. As much as we were out in these stringy lines, we were tight together, which made it far more complicated and confusing for them to actually probe that. So what they suggested was that we had a little bit over here, a little bit over here, some down here, a couple over here, and they wanted to split us all up so they could deal with us individually. That's clear as day to me. That doesn't fall short of me. That's obvious as day. And then they wanted us to go down into the Westpac Arena, and then after the first week they wanted to charge people every day they were there a few dollars for the toilets and things. I can't remember how much it was. It's like $50 a day or something. And then they were going to say, oh, we're going to tow your cars from this area. So that was hilarious. So regardless of that proposition, we didn't budge. We weren't moving. I noticed there were a few different security things popping up around the place, and that was great, because I couldn't man everything because of the shape of the perimeter. It wasn't so much the size of the perimeter, it was the shape. So that started happening, and that was when you got your guys going, oh, I'm the security guy, I'm the security guy. And it's like, well, look, I wasn't originally going to be doing the security guy, but I'm the security guy because I'm using my expertise, you know. And yeah, it's almost, it was a beyond security situation, because you're talking about police with weapons. You're not talking about drunks coming into your bar. So there's a lot of people approach me going, oh, I did security, I got a COA. It's like, oh, that's nice. What do you know about perimeters? you know. So that was amusing. What else was there that was interesting like that?